traversed the tombs of Naxxramas. We've climbed every cliff on Black Rock. Now the world cries out for heroes. As a new evil rises, there will be danger. There will be doom. There will be ancient temples filled with relics, treasures, and traps. Who will answer the call?
Explorers lead, and we are in need of explorers. Adventure we seek, cross land and sea. Born to come and join us.
Yes!
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, to the SLI League Star Series. I'm Noxious, and with me today is Lothar. How are you doing, man?
Good. Just dropped my microphone. Hope it's all well, so we'll see how it goes. I dropped the mic. It's like, oopa.
Drop the mic. Yeah, all the style points for Lothar. So, again, guys, for those of you who know how this works, I'll still be re-explaining exactly how the entire thing works. We're on the first group stage portion of the tournament. We're, however, on Group D, and this is the last day of the entire first part of the group stage. It's really important that you understand this because the games that we see today will determine who in Group D will be moving on to the group stage 2. So we had initially in each group 5 players, so they all had to fight each other in a round robin, best of 5 conquest, and all the groups A, B, C have been decided, but Group D is still yet to be determined. In fact, yesterday, every single player won one of their matches, which means that in effect, we don't know for sure who's favored at this point. We know some of the players and their tiebreakers, but this could all change today, right?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone won a game yesterday, and this makes it very interesting because what is being taken into consideration when it comes to group placements is, first of all, the exact winner of a duel. So if two players have a 2-2, an example, 2 win and 2 losses, the player that will be above the other one will be the player that wins against that dude. So after that, if that's not decided still, then it goes to the single game points and so on. So it will be very interesting to see how the games will be resolved today.
Yeah, so the most convincing victory yesterday was actually had by Life Coach, who beat StanCifka 3-0, which basically gives him for now at least, the best score of everyone in the group. But again, we still don't know exactly how things are going to pan out. We had 3 2s, we had 3 of them, and Cipher beat Dog 3-1. So overall, I still think it's anyone's game at this stage. We're still, not sure anybody is going to move on at this point. We saw Hot Form getting his second win yesterday against Cipher. There was a chance that he was going to get knocked out, but he stabilized and guaranteed himself a bit more safety. Now, as far as the groups that we already have, Group A already sees people move on to group stage number 2. We've got Tyson and Maz from Group A who are going to be moving on. We've got Trump and Jab from Group B, and Kalento and Surrender from Group C.
Some notable eliminations, though, there are 2, right? Firebat and who else was there? Firebat, Stripe, Purple. 3 eliminations that we've already seen, and those are top-tier players. So, interesting outcome from a lot of games.
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy the way that, you see the name Purple, who just won DreamHack. You see Firebat, who won the first World Championship. And you think, well, those guys should probably be able to make it at least through the group stage. But that's not necessarily the case. The brackets are stacked with players of very high levels. So somebody's got to take the fall for everybody else, of course. So, maybe we'll see them in the next season, perhaps. And the people who do not necessarily finish in the top 2, but end up on 3 and 4th of their group, they go to the last chance qualifier. So even if they lose, unless they're the last in their group, they still have the opportunity to make it to the following round. So they're not quite out of it yet, and that's really an important thing to keep in mind. It's not going to be a round robin for the last chance qualifier. It's going to be a single elimination bracket, but it gives people a chance at least not to get completely knocked out.
Yep, exactly. And I'm really hyped for some matches today. Like an example, StanCifka's deck, the Mage. I can't really wait to see it. I mean, this was one of the decks that we watched a lot yesterday because we used 3 times against Live Coach. It didn't win a single game, but it was very interesting to watch and to analyze what's happening. So I can't really wait for Stan to maybe start off the day with that deck. And Cipher is the only player that brings out here a very aggressive lineup. Like, he's the only player that brings a pure aggro deck, like an example of his Druid build.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because his Druid is very aggressive. The Paladin is something of a standard deck, and the Tempo Mage is also something of a standard Tempo Mage. Like, we see StanCifka probably with the most unexpected lineup, I'd say, just because that Mage he brought is very unique in that it's a very a grinder mage, right? Like Strive Crow popularized, I want to say, the grinder mage a long time ago, and this spin on it by StanCifka with a lot of discovery cards really gives him the ability to fetch more secrets, right? He plays 2 Scarabs, he plays Ethereal Conjurers, so it's actually a pretty interesting lineup that he has, and yesterday we saw the mage maybe do a little bit less work than you might like.
Yeah, that's true. Like, the problem with the deck is the fact that it's actually the opposite of Tempo Mage, because what Tempo Mage wants to achieve, what Tempo decks want to achieve, is to build board advantage by sacrificing card advantage really fast. So cards like Sorcerer's Apprentice makes your low-value spells almost free, which you can spam in one turn to get immediate board control when the mage from StanCifka wants to get card advantage by playing discovery cards, which will fit the current environment seen on board. So it's completely 2 opposite decks.
Yeah, they're trying to do 2 very different things. And the thing is, the funny thing about mages as well is that with the amount of archetypes you've got nowadays, it's kind of difficult to come up with something unique. But it looks like with StanCifka's, bringing the grinder mage, I almost have hope that mage will become warlock once again, right? At some point, that's kind of what it was. Like you had so many possible archetypes for it that you couldn't predict what it would be.
Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting, and I like this a lot. I like that certain class is not tied to just one dimension of a deck, which we unfortunately see in Druid most likely in most of the situations, right? Because even if it's like a mid-range deck, it still runs double combo, and if you're aggro deck, you still run double combo. So yeah, that's the problem with the Druid class, I see. But let's go to the match.
Yeah, I mean, we see Tempo Mage versus something of a mid-range Paladin from StanCifka. Is it Secret? I think it is. We saw him play Secret Paladin yesterday. This hand is
the same decks.
Right, it's the same deck, same exact decks that he played yesterday. However, I think his hand is very well equipped to deal with Ciphers, just because there's no Flamewaker and no shenanigans with Arcane Missiles. And usually that's kind of what you're afraid of when you're in a spot like this one here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the Flamewaker is the MVP against Paladin, and when you know that there's no Flamewaker because he would have been dropped already, or you can just bait him out and see that there's no Flamewaker, you just have a green light to do whatever you want with the board. But even though the Grand Hammer here has a great value, it destroys the Sorcerer's Apprentice, still gives you a Divine Shield on the Haunted Creeper. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't go for it. But he chooses the option to with the Master of Battle to see what will happen in the upcoming turn if there will be a Flamewaker. Oh, there is one, but
that's helpful. But
yeah, but there's no Arcane Missiles to salvage the situation. Imagine if there would be a Flamewaker with Arcane Missiles in this position. And Cipher
it could happen next turn still, right? Like, it's not quite done yet. He still has the opportunity to find it. But now that StanCifka didn't see Flamewaker Arcane Missiles, he doesn't have to worry about it at all. And even if it's there, I mean, how much can you really play around it in this deck?
Yeah, you can't really. Well, he might have been playing it around it with the Cookhammer, right? Because it's still building board advantage and making it very uncomfortable for the mage to just play into a Haunted Creeper with Divine Shield and a Taunt. But at the same time, this turn for Ciphers, I think it's pretty easy. Mana Worm into Mad Scientist, pink one of the 1/1s, then trade, because you don't want to be...
Get lucky, find a sheep.
Oh,
not get lucky.
I was thinking more about Mana Wrath. I don't know why, but when I'm trading, I'm always thinking there will be a Mana Wrath, and then I can't play any minions. Then I will lose, because that's Paladin. You can't really play around that. So I would definitely go for the minions first.
Would it change his game plan at all, right? Like, 'cause that's the question. Usually, the question of when you trade depends on what's on the board. And let's say there was an explosive sheep coming out, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do? If you play the Scientist first, the Mana Worm first, then, it kind of sucks because you're losing the minions. But ultimately, there's what? Mana Wraith, Nerebar, Weblord. In some cases, it can be a problem. But otherwise, the likelihood of Doomsayer, Explosive Sheep, no, they're pretty slim, but it's kind of the same. Like it's a bit higher even than Mana Wraith alone. So we'll see.
But at the same time,
that's why.
even if there's a Doomsayer or a Explosive Sheep, you're still fine. Even if you lose the Mad Scientist and just the Mana Worm by accident.
For sure.
And when there's a Mana Wrath, you basically lost the game.
I think it's funny how people trigger the Paladin Shredders very differently, right? Like a lot of people do it differently. Cipher tends to play a very cautious game, right?
Yeah.
Very often he's very conservative. You're right. With his resources, he's always valued them super high. Like whenever you see him play, it's a very noticeable thing. He ends up resources as much as possible, no matter the cost. Very often.
Yeah. Especially with the Aggro Druid, he was making so much trades. It was very interesting to watch. Kind of frustrating for players that play this deck way different than a player that plays it more defensively. But yeah.
Yeah, it still did pretty okay yesterday, by the way. So Cipher picks up a spell for his Flame Waker, not necessarily the worst in this case, because even the Micro Machine is down to 1 health. So the question is, how much do you value maybe just pinging the Micro Machine instead? Because ultimately, if the Flame Waker doesn't hit the 3-1, then you're in a really bad spot. Or at least,
well, clearing the board, sure, it's important, but when I see StanCifka's hand, turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, I don't see an easy way out of this.
it's looking very... I can't see Cipher picking up enough removal to deal with Challenger, with Dr. Boom, and with Dr. 8, effectively.
Yeah, and a full
almost
tree. Oh my
Oh no. That is hell. The question is, StanCifka, does he want to kill a scientist to prevent the triggering of the secrets, right?
I don't think so, because the mirror entity will... there's one more chance to draw the mirror entity instead of getting it from that scientist, which will definitely disrupt the plays for Cipher if you'll just basically skip a draw, right? So it was a good decision to not trade with the Mad Scientist.
Alright, so Redemption is going to trigger on the 2-1, you know that much. And now, after that, you get the opportunity to use Fireball and Frostbolt to kill a 6-6 and any other 3 health minion that gets buffed by Avenge. So technically, in a spot like this, I think you're able to use those to clean up the board a little bit. You're a little off curve no matter what you do, so maybe you just play the Flame Waker with this instead and hope that the missiles land.
Yeah. The Repentance hits the Flame Waker, obviously, and now he's pushed to use the Frostbolt on the Challenger and then use the Flame Cannon afterwards just to ensure that he's cleaning up the board as much as possible. Unfortunately, he didn't hit the 4-3 and twice to the face. Ooh.
Yep.
Well, looks like it.
That's rough. That's rough. That is rough.
Yep.
And he's going for the double juggle. All right.
Oh, there's a counter spell. Look at that.
He plays around Mirror Entity, right? He plays around it very well, but it ends up slowing down the amount of aggression he could have put out. Not that this is negligible. I mean, we're talking about double juggler, hero power. That's 2 damage to face, plus a kill on the Flame Waker. And after that point, it's basically a matter of time.
It's 10 damage this turn, just with the hero power. So I guess there was no need to even put out the Dr. Boom if you have a hand like this.
Yeah, it's like he's 1-off lethal, your weapon kills him next turn. The odds that Cipher cleans this up are slim to none. I mean, even if he had Flame Strike, unless it's his Ice Block, he's still dead to the weapon hit. So that'll be it for the first game. StanCifka does nail a win with his Paladin, but again, we still have the Mage and is that a Reno Jackson lock?
Yes, it was a Reno Jackson Warlock for StanCifka. So something interesting, he was bringing 2 interesting decks to the tournament. It didn't go super well for him in the first day, but he still won 1 match from 2, so both players here are really well, basically what it means, if you lose this game, you can't, most likely you can advance. So yeah,
I think overall, though, like the Secret Paladin from Cipher is likely to take a win against something. It's one of those decks that, and it's kind of interesting that we see it in a tournament setting because I feel like it's more of a ladder deck, right? The way that it's structured. It has good matchups against pretty much the entire field, but it doesn't really roll over anything specifically. So it's a funny type of deck to bring to a tournament setting. You're basically banking on its ability to kill any random deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Very good point. What I would like to point out also is the fact that StanCifka, by having the Reno Jackson Red in hand, and this is something I emphasized a lot yesterday, just by having that card in his hand, he knows how aggressive he can be with the taunts, with a Hellfire, or with just playing board control instead of being defensive with minions with taunts, an example.
Right, or even like life tapping, right? Sometimes you'll feel a little cautious about life tap if getting that Reno Jackson is just a chance as opposed to guaranteeing it. So right now, he can basically do, or dictate the pace of the game, throwing away resources all the way through until he exhausts Cipher. And it's an interesting thing because if there's a Divine Favor in Cipher's deck, then the draw also sometimes becomes a little bit of a drawback.
Yeah, that's true. But 2 Secret Keepers? Basically, 2 Zombie Chows for 1 mana without any drawback and with potential even upsides for the upcoming turns. That's something you can't really ignore. So one of those has to be taken care of next turn, unless Stan would like to choose the Twilight Drake instead. I guess that shouldn't be the option.
I can see that. So he does get a read that it is not the Noble Sacrifice. He also knows that it's not Repentance because he did play the Zombie Chow. What's interesting here is that Cipher, by having 2 challengers, is unfortunately going to miss out on the Redemption, possibly, right? If the Redemption triggers this turn, and then he goes out with a Challenger, he will get 1 wave of Secrets, and then the second one will not contain the Redemption Trinity with the Noble Sac and Avenge. So overall, I still feel like Cipher's got a pretty good amount of aggression to put out, but it can be defused with Shadow Flame, Twisting Nether in a few turns, mitigated with Siphon Soul.
Yep, exactly. There are a few options to just clear the board with ease, even though, in theory, the Paladin should be heavily favored in such a matchup. Mortal Coil will clean up the first Secret Keeper. The second Secret Keeper most likely will be cleaned up with the attack from the Twilight Drake. Unless he wants to attack into the Shredder, but I'm not sure.
Oh, well, that's a steal. It's just not the one that he wanted. I don't think that's something you really necessarily want to take, considering all the alternatives. Still a pretty good spot, though, for StanCifka. I mean, he's got all the removal in the world in his hand, right? Like the spot removal of Siphon Soul deals with a 6/6. The Implosion also helps. Oh, the other Redemption for Cipher will not be coming out of the Challenger.
Well, that's what you get for playing double Redemption.
That's what you get for playing a Secret Paladin, more like. Justice.
So he got only 2 secrets.
Repentance and I think maybe Avenge. Yeah, that's about it, right? Repentance and Avenge, I think. Or Noble Sac Avenge. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure which are doubles for him and which are single one-offs, so it's really hard to predict.
I think it's Noble Sac and Avenge, though.
If that's Noble Sac...
But how can there not be Repentance, right? Oh,
well, not everyone plays Repentance, man.
Well, we saw one earlier, didn't we?
I don't think so.
Well, that was from StanCifka, I guess.
Yeah, that's the Noble Sac.
The Repentance triggered on the Flame Waker earlier, so it was from Stan. I guess Cypher's not running it. Well,
and the
Avenge is going to trigger
on the Paltecher, which is not bad because there's no silence and there's no easy kill on the Siphon. Actually, that was the worst possible target for StanCifka to land the Avenge on.
Yeah, it's actually really tricky now because there's enough damage on the board that you can't simply... I mean, you could technically Siphon Soul the 6/6, right? It would heal you back up to 16, and then the Paladin needs to put together an extra 7 from the hand, which is very unlikely on 6 mana. Yeah. So then you get a perfect Reno turn where you just you know, you push him to just go face as much as you can, and then you punish him for doing exactly that. Oh man, Cipher with the secrets. Oh, poor guy. He's got nothing left, like one Avenge and that's it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Wow. Well,
and he did trade for the Twilight Drake, which is a good read if you know that your opponent might have the Reno Jackson, because he still has to deal with the board first. That's 30 damage.
Demon Wrath pops the Shredder. If it's Redemption, however, you give him another Shredder, which you really don't want to do, right? So right now the issue StanCifka's got is he doesn't know that Cipher has these exact 3 secrets in hand. All he knows is there was a Redemption in Cipher's hand, otherwise it would have come out of the first challenger. So he knows there's no Redemption, technically. But he still makes the call to go with the Reno for safety.
Yep.
Because he could have deduced what was and what wasn't in the deck. Based on what the last challenger brought out.
Well, in this situation, there's 12 damage. He can play all those secrets for 0 mana, which allows him to play 1 more minion on board, which can be changed to a 3/3, so it's actually a huge deal. But as much as it sounds neat, now is the question if he plays around Twisting Nether and Shadow Flame.
Yeah, how much can that's the question, right? Like, how much AoE is StanCifka holding? I think at this point you kind of have to go all in. You saw Reno, that's the biggest amount of healing. If there's AoE beyond this, then it's out of your hands. It's all based on what the Warlock gets. It's not really for you to determine. You have to just trust in the light and just go all in here and hope that everything lines up. But the Twisting Nether from StanCifka, you know, pretty much allows him to clean, assuming he doesn't even just use something else instead. Well, he's going to go with a Twisting Nether, which will bring back the Challenger as a 6/1, I believe. And then buff it up with Avenge, unless I'm mistaken. Oh, no, that's right. There is no more Avenge. That's it. There's Competitive Spirit and Noble Sack. Wow. Okay.
Well,
you know, this is kind of the stat line that I expected Dr. Boom to have.
You think so?
Sweet 7-2. No, maybe a 7-5. 7-2 is a bit overkill.
7-5 is okay. I mean, 7-7 still would be fine with bombs that deal 1 to 2 damage, in my opinion.
Sure, right. I don't know. I feel like the fact that you can't use damage to kill minions is pretty depressing sometimes. So, life tap, you know, despite everything in the Reno and all, like, he's still on 11 health after this. So after the Reno, after the Twisting Nether, after all is said and done, he still has only 11 health left.
But he has a Healbot in the deck, he has a Farseer in his deck. So there are so many options to still heal. And he knows he can be aggressive with the taps as well, just because he's facing a Paladin. Imagine if he would be facing a Hunter, an example. That would be a problem. But against a Paladin, he can do whatever he wants, basically.
Yeah, there's no risk of sudden burst coming out of the Paladin, pretty much ever.
Yep.
It's just the way they play.
And now one of the silences will also have a target for his basically his ability. I wouldn't be surprised if just the Dr. Boom slams the door, well, you can say that he slams the door down and just goes to the board.
Goes in, yep, exactly. So what's interesting here is that if Tyrion comes out, oh, well, that's not what you want to see. Like if Tyrion comes out, because there's a second silence in StanCifka's deck, Cipher will still not get the weapon that he maybe is hoping to find. Right? At this point, he's like, yeah, maybe I can get Tyrion at some stage and win, but it's unlikely. In fact, he just concedes.
Yep. I think even with a Tyrion, it would still be very hard to win this game, even with a Tyrion, just because your opponent will have more damage on the board than your weapon. That would kill your opponent in 3 turns, because that's what you needed. 3 turns, 3 swings with the weapon, just to kill your opponent. When StanCifka would most likely have more than lethal in 2 turns with all those minions.
Yeah, over about 2 turns, Dr. Boom would finish him off. If a taunt comes out, if a healing, source comes out, Jiraxis comes out, like you're pretty much out of it. So at this stage, I think Cipher knew he was beat, which is why he left. And now we're going to see the last deck from StanCifka that he has to win with, and that is the very unique Grinder Mage that he's running.
And it should be better against aggressive decks, right? With all those explosive sheeps, with ways of stopping the bleeding. But
yeah, the theory supports that, right? Technically, that's what it should do.
Yep. But now we'll see how it goes, actually.
Alright, StanCifka has the option of getting the Scarab out. It lets him ping the 3-2 on the following turn by using the 1-1 and maybe get himself something he'll need.
Saboteur again! Second time for StanCifka, and I'm guessing this will be his pick.
Yeah, I mean, Ice Rager dies to keep the Grove. So might as well just take something that has the most health, right?
Black Technician doesn't kill the Piloted Shredders, and it doesn't really contribute against Druid of the Claws. It's awful against Druid of the Claws when you think about it, because they can just charge into it when you know that Cipher plays the defensive game a lot. This can actually happen.
I think the idea behind the Technician is that it kills a Juggler and it has a bit of health left over. It trades 1-for-1 with the Keeper of the Grove if they basically smash into each other. That to me, I think, is the reasoning that StanCifka's taking. Right now, he has to make a call, right? Because next turn he can go for the Explosive Sheep ping. So he has the option of just playing another Scarab and maybe letting Cipher extend a bit more on this. Or he could attack with a Scarab and ping this, but that doesn't let him improve his options.
Well, you can just play the sheep this turn. Now, there are the two options. It's Frost Nova or just the Technician. If you play Frost Nova, your plan is, of course, to ping the sheep next turn, but that makes it so obvious for your opponent.
Right. It's so tricky. You almost don't want to play... I feel like the Scarab is reasonable, right? Like, just get an extra draw. It's basically a Novice Engineer. Would you play a Novice Engineer here? I think I would. Because I've got the Scarab, the sheep on the back end. Alright, he opts for the 2-4. So he's squeezing that bit of extra value from kills, as we spoke of. And what that does is it might force Cipher to simply use his hero power to kill the 2-4 here, instead of potentially feeding his opponent more value. I think Cipher will be content for, to just push here.
Yeah, he should just go for the push with the damage. The Fell Reavers in hand are awful against his opponent deck. He knows that there might be additional Frost Novas from the Scarabs, and there are Frost Novas actually in the deck as well. And
Ice Barrier even from the Scarab. Ice Barrier, Nova, an Ice Block again stops you. BGH could come out of the Scarab, funny enough. So there's a lot of things that make the Fell Reaver, kind of annoying to deal with. What's funny here is that if Cipher doesn't attack the 2-4, the sheep from StanCifka is godlike, because he gets to keep his 2-4 and trade it away into the 1-drop that the Raptor gives. So that's a good sheep.
Well, that's a very good sheep for StanCifka, and I think he should go for it anyway.
He's thinking whether or not he wants to extract more value, perhaps.
So the other option
Nova
is to
and
kill the Raptor and then Nova, but I don't think that's even close to correct with that amount of damage that we're piling from next turns.
Oh, and he finds a 1-attack minion too, so he keeps the 2-1 alive. StanCifka's line of thinking, by the way, with the whole I'm going to keep the 2-4 instead of the Saboteur, it's actually working out. In this case, this is exactly what you spoke of. It doesn't kill Shredders, but I think it did enough work up until this point to where you're happy with everything that happened with it.
Well, but it required so much luck with, let's say, having a drop from the Mounted Raptor that has 1 attack was highly unlikely, right? So
well, it's pretty high likelihood. It's not necessarily that rare, but yeah, it is not as guaranteed as maybe getting the value from Saboteur, perhaps.
Anyway, both would have been working in this example, but now it makes it. Now Cipher is in a spot where he will most likely use the Druid of the Claw. I think he can't really risk the Fell Reaver, and then I love
All
this.
right. Well,
Yesterday,
this is,
he was exactly the opposite when it comes to
And now-
play style.
yeah.
And now he just goes for the Fel Reaver.
Well, that Fel Reaver is basically gone right now. BGH top deck from StanCifka, the draw that he had from it last turn, basically guarantees that he can handle the Fel Reavers. Not only that, but he can also use Nova afterwards, maybe set up a duplicate. If the other Fel Reaver comes out from Cipher, Cipher, I think, has to be a little bit scared of playing the second one, at least, right? I mean, what if there's even Echo of Medivh plus BGH?
Oh man.
Yeah, this is painful when you're trying to do a lot of work with your Fel Reaver.
And you have a second one, and the Frozen will just, I don't know, man. It will just wreck the board, and you can't leave the Bronzebeard on the board as well. So if you go
So-
for the Druid of the Claw
Oh.
and you kill the Bronzebeard, then it's fine. But okay, what I want to see in the next turn is a Scarab into Big Game Hunter and Frost Nova.
Well, he's gonna lack a little bit of mana for that. but
I
he
mean,
can
just the
probably
picks
find-
from the Scarab.
Oh,
the picks
sure.
From the Scarab.
Neither of those.
But Argent Horse
Like, he
Rider
played a
is not bad.
Silverback Patriarch is actually really annoying. He just put it down in front of that aggression, and there's nothing he can do.
Well, nothing great here. The effigy is not bad.
It's all right.
Could have been better.
It's
but
totally
the Frost Nova just wrecks the board. Wrecks the deck from Cipher, and this makes a huge difference because next turn he will be left with no board.
He did lose 2 Keepers of the Grove, by the way, in the mill, so there's none left. So he cannot unfreeze his Fel Reaver and just pound for 8 damage. So he's just basically waiting around here for StanCifka to choose what he wants to do. There's a good swipe, at least he can clean up the board and maybe keep that Fel Reaver around. But it's starting to hurt because you're starting to lose pretty much all your deck at this stage. I think that's the play you've got to make either way, right? Like, you have to swipe and kill the 4-2 and hope that maybe what's in your hand right now is able to stay alive.
Well, still makes a little to no difference because of that Fel Reaver. Like, you won't be able to attack the whole game.
Yeah, at this stage, it's not looking very likely that he can. Although 1 Blizzard is enough. Like, as he feels for Blizzard here, he passes his turn and plays nothing else. So in my mind, I think he'll just try to mill his opponent. Cipher must be left on about, what, at most 12 cards, is my assumption. He already lost about 15.
Well,
Yeah, so he must be down to about 9.
3, 6. Yeah, I think it's exactly 15. What StanCifka has to do is to play the counter right now with the effigy, I think, or with the duplicate. Maybe even duplicate would be better.
I like duplicate a lot in this spot with the Patriarch, as bad as it seems. But it's tricky to decide, though, because that Blizzard, I mean, you want to extract value from it to kill many things. Right now, this is probably the clunkiest turn StanCifka is going to get for a bit.
Yep.
And it's not even that clunky. It's just the clunkiest that he's going to have to deal with.
Savage Roar. 1 was burned. That's the duplicate. Too bad he doesn't have a 2-drop right now. Lothar was also burned. Very important card for Cipher.
Was that last card? Savage Roar number
Savage Roar
2.
2. That actually
is a
makes
big deal.
Yes, that is a big deal. But 18 health and double Night Jugglers right now. Those Jugglers are so weak to Blizzard.
He's going to have to hope that the Fel Reaver can basically carry the game at this stage, because now we've reached the point, and this is also important to mention, where the Fel Reaver does not discard anything else. That's it. It cannot start making you draw from your deck, so you will not fatigue any further than you already are.
Yes.
So right now, StanCifka has to kill the Fel Reaver, right?
No, he doesn't.
At some point.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, he has to stop it with
Blizzard.
the Patriarch, right?
Yeah, the Patriarchs will do his job, and when you think about it, Cipher is getting damage each single turn. So it's 1 damage this turn, another 2 damage next turn, and if Cifka will just have enough time to clear the board, and that's just the Flame Strike next turn, that'll be enough to win the game entirely.
Right. StanCifka can't really, start milling his opponent to death, but he can just wait it out. Like, the Silverback Patriarch duplicate turn, as ridiculous as it looked, like, I can't even believe this is a card that somehow made a difference, but it's hilarious to think that this card is actually, in this case, super important for Stan, because if he didn't find it, there's a good chance that the Ferryver could have gotten one extra attack in, perhaps, and that might have been enough maybe to give Cipher the edge, and that means StanCifka is going to take it 3-0.
Wow. 3-0
over Cipher.
In 20 minutes. 20 minutes of a match. And the Silver Patriarch was played twice on the board, and the player won the game while playing 2 Silverback Patriarchs.
And it's not a hunter.
Yeah, it's not a hunter. The beast didn't really matter. It was basically a 3 mana, a 2 mana. Well, you can think about it as 3 mana shield bearer with +1 attack.
Yeah. Plenty of work to be done for those amazing 3 drops. So Blizzard, you don't have to buff or nerf cards. After all, we found our sweet spot. Just leave them at 3 mana and the Scarab will take care of it. So, that being said, congratulations to StanCifka for second win. He's not quite out of it and not quite done yet. He's got another match later on against Dog, if I'm not mistaken. And he will have to try to see whether or not he can nail himself a 3-1 score. Right now, he's up 2-1 in the group stage. The next match will oppose Life Coach and Hot Form. We'll be taking a short break. This match was really, really quick before we resume for the next match, and then we'll be moving on. So, yep, stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.